Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Inside Equine Minds, where I, Caitlin Hendry, meet with various horse professionals, trainers, riders, grooms, to dive deep inside the minds of the most successful horses in various disciplines. I'll take you behind the scenes from the horse's perspective to learn about how these horses are trained and managed in a way that strengthens their mental game and has fueled their massive success. This podcast is brought to you by EQPI, or Equine Performance Identities, a personality profiling tool for horses that guides people to becoming the partner their horse actually needs. We all want our horses to be a happy and willing partner and to enjoy spending time with us. An EQPI profile gives you the information about your horse's individual needs and motivations so you can adapt the way that you're working with them to ensure just that. And should we decide that we're just not the best person for our horse or circumstances lead us to having to sell or lease, EQPI is a great tool for sharing what your horse's temperament is to ensure they do get a good match with their next person. Or maybe you love your horse so much that you want more of them and you decide that you want to breed. An EQPI profile provides invaluable information about temperament, so you can really make sure you're looking at the full picture when you're choosing the best stallion or mare for your horse. On this 6th episode of Season 2 of Inside Equine Minds, I am joined by pony catch rider extraordinaire Kenzie Smith and her mom Heather Acker to talk about a really special pony named On Tour, also known as Morley. He got his pony hunter career a little bit late. He is a 2013 Welsh pony gelding, and he started in 2023 in his green year with Michaela Bromback, but did very successfully. At pony finals, they were champion of the large green pony hunters, and in addition to that, they were the overall champion of the green pony hunters. Ultimately, they ended the year in 2023 as 13th in the year-end rankings for the Green Pony Hunters before Kenzie took over the reins in 2024. Some key accomplishments from last year include being 3rd overall in the Large Pony Hunters at Pony Finals. They were also reserve champion at Harrisburg and Capital Challenge, including being 2nd in the WCHR Pony Challenge at Capital Challenge. And they finished the year as the USEF Reserve Pony Hunter of the Year. And 2025 is off to a very great start as well. During the Winter Equestrian Festival, Kenzie and Morley won the $5,000 Pony Hunter Derby during week 9 out of 53 entries, and they are the circuit champions for the Large Pony Hunters. So I think special is a little bit of an understatement for Morley, and so I'm really excited to talk with Kenzie and Heather about him and his personality and how they help him to be so successful. But like always, before we do so, let's dive into Morley's EQPI profile. In order to get Morley's profile, Heather completed the EQPI input survey, which is available on the EQPI website, www.equineperformanceidentities.com. Using Heather's inputs, I then analyze Morley's profile against 4 spectrums of behavior, which are independence, which is the horse's preference to control or comply, extroversion, which is the horse's preference to interact or isolate, stability, which is the horse's preference for predictability or variety, and lastly, the structure spectrum, which is the horse's preference for clarity or flexibility. Then, in addition to looking at where Morley falls on each of these individual spectrums, I also look at how these spectrums relate to each other, and this is really what brings out the nuances of every individual's personality and gives a better understanding of how to support the horse as an individual. All right, so diving into Morley's profile. For the independence spectrum, Morley is considered very low. Low independence horses don't have the self-confidence of high independence horses, and so they can be a little bit insecure and they rely more on others for guidance, especially in unfamiliar environments. They also then really want to please. They're very willing, they're very sweet, and because of this, they don't really like conflict. So they need an environment that is very low conflict and a lot of reassurance. For the extroversion spectrum, Morley is considered high. Horses who are high extroversion tend to be very expressive. They tend to also be more social and more playful, especially because he is also low stability. And low stability horses have more energy, and they are usually also more sensitive to different types of energy, especially because of that high extroversion brings out that expressiveness. So Morley will need more variety in his routine in order to meet those needs of the high extroversion and the low stability and really keep his mind engaged. The structure spectrum for Morley is his strongest spectrum, meaning that it will likely influence his behavior the most. And he is considered extremely high on this spectrum. So the needs related to clarity, wanting to know the right answer, wanting to mitigate risk, those will all be very strong needs that will need to be met for him in order to really be his happiest and most successful self. Now, for the relationships between the spectrums, we already talked a little bit about the relationship between his high extroversion and his low stability, but let's dive into the others. The first relationship we'll talk about is the relationship between his high extroversion and his very low independence. When we see this relationship, these horses are more relationship oriented. That relationship with whoever they're being handled by or whoever's riding them, that's very important to them. So it's key to really make sure that you're spending time with these relationship-oriented horses other than just asking them to do a job. Morley's independent spectrum is also lower than his low stability. And when we see this relationship, these horses, even though Morley is more of a higher energy horse because of that low stability, he's not necessarily going to be forward thinking because his stability is still higher than his low independence. So he would still prefer to be told what to do because of that low independence and wait versus wanting to make his own decisions. And the last relationship related to the low independence is related to his extremely high structure. And these horses are very risk averse. This is the strongest relationship for him, meaning those spectrums are the farthest apart in his profile. And so taking every opportunity to help mitigate risk for him and help him understand that you are going to support him through any ambiguity, breaking anything down that you're asking into very small steps so that he doesn't have as much risk of getting the answer wrong because he really wants to please and get it right. So that will be very important for him and keeping him happy. The only other thing I want to mention about the high extroversion and the low stability relationship, in addition to just maybe getting bored more easily, they also tend to be quicker to approach new horses or new people, but this will be tempered a little bit by that relationship between the low independence and the low stability, with the independence being lower. And also the relationship between the high structure being higher than Morley's high extroversion. So even though he would want to connect with new horses and new people, that relationship with the high structure being higher than his high extroversion means that it will likely take him more time to trust new horses or new people. And the last relationship I want to mention is that his extremely high structure is higher than his low stability. And these horses who have this relationship are very rule-oriented. These horses tend to do better in a clear and consistent program that not only helps to meet the energy needs of the low stability and the variety needs of the low stability, but also meets the clarity needs of the high structure. If you want to see Morley's XPI profile in more detail, it is available on the Inside Equine Minds Patreon account, and this is true for any of the horses that have been featured on this podcast. And now that we all have the same basic understanding of Morley's profile, let's talk to Kenzie and Heather. Kenzie, let's start with you because obviously you are a catch rider extraordinaire for these ponies, right? You've ridden a ton of really successful ponies. But I want to know what it is about Morley. What aspect of his personality can you not live without? What's your favorite thing?
the way he jumps and how like he's really sweet about things. He jumps really well and he tries his hardest when he really likes you, and I really love that about him. And I love how like when he like really likes you, he's really sweet to you and he like treats you very well.
How about for you, Heather? What is something that you can't live without related to Morley's personality?
To me, I think he wants to be a winner. Like, I think he knows when it's really important and he can kind of pull it together and really shine when it's the right moments.
Because of the energy or the attention? What do you think?
I don't know if he just like knows. I mean, sometimes he can be funny in the warm-up area and we're like, oh no. But like you almost know that like he's gonna go in and lay down a 90.
Hmm.
You can kind of feel it.
Hmm. What do you mean by if he's funny in the warm up?
Um, like sometimes he'll be a little bit spooky or get easily distracted or be like a little bit more playful. And you're like, okay, like this warm-up just isn't going the way that it needs to be going. But you're like, we're gonna go in the ring and lay down a 90. And that's what he does. You know, and sometimes when you think it's perfect and you're like, okay, like this is exactly where he needs to be, walks in the ring and you're like, nope. You know, so it's like you can kind of tell with him. Like this past weekend on Sunday, I was like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. And I told Kenzie, I was like, we're just going, and like goes in and wins the class. All right, you see, this is how it happens. You know, so you kind of get, I mean, we've had him almost a year now. So I kind of feel like we know him really, really well now. So I think you kind of have to play into what his personality is that day and how he's feeling.
Yeah. And what does he feel like to you, Kenzie, as the rider? How can you tell the difference when he is going to go in and lay down a 90 versus not?
At indoors per se, he was like not feeling himself in the sculling ring and he walked in and got like a 90. He really does know when. Because like here at WEF this week when he went into the Grand Hunter, besides like the pony ring that he goes in every week that he doesn't really love, it's not his favorite, he walked into the Grand Hunter and was like, oh, this is like a big ring, you know? It's like my moment.
Yeah. And when you say he's not feeling himself, what is he doing when you're riding him?
He's very like not focused. He's very like, what's this? What's that?
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just like he's very distracted and like not keying in.
But then he just turns on a switch and he nails it in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that all makes sense to me. I feel like looking at his profile with his high extroversion and his low stability in particular, high extroversion horses are more expressive and more curious and more playful. And then with the low stability, they are higher energy horses and they're also, I feel, more sensitive to energy. So if there's a lot going on in the warm up or it's a really big class, he might be able to pick up on that and he is more sensitive to that, which maybe leads to some of that distractibility and excitement. But then I guess when you take it all away and you're just in the ring by yourself, he's able to kind of hone and focus that energy on the task at hand. On the flip side of that, with his personality, we just talked about what you couldn't live without. Kenzie, I'll start with you. What is an aspect of his personality that you find the most challenging part to navigate?
Probably the hardest thing is that he really needs a confident rider to ride him. And I mean, if you're not very confident, he really feels it and he knows like when this isn't going to work and if it is going to work.
Heather, you said earlier that he gets a little bit spooky, maybe. So is it sort of like a lack of confidence? And when he doesn't have a strong rider, he gets a little lost, or?
I think he likes someone to hold his hand a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if he builds a bond with somebody, you know, riding and just like in the barn in general, and he knows that you really trust him and you kind of respect him, I think he'll show you the same in the ring. And if you go in there and you're not 100% confident and you start to get a little bit nervous and you don't really hold his hand a little bit, then I think he starts to get a little bit nervous.
Yeah, we talked about his extroversion and his stability, but I have heard a bit of that low independence as well. Because low independence horses are definitely more team players and they don't have as much self-confidence as high independence horses. And so they really want to please and they want to do more what they're told to do versus think more proactively and make their own decisions. So I can see how if he's not being given clear direction, that might cause some anxiety on his part. Although I would think that as he gets more and more comfortable with the role and the job, and he's has more riders and sees more rings and venues, although he's been to a lot of places, I would think that because of that, he has really high, extremely high structure. That's his strongest spectrum. And they get confidence from depth of expertise. So even though he doesn't have the self-confidence from the independent spectrum, if he knows what the answer is and he knows what to expect and he has that clarity, I can see how he would just build more and more confidence. But it sounds like maybe, because I know he just did his green year in 23, so he's probably still building that expertise.
Yeah, and I mean, even his green year, like I don't think he showed a ton, if I'm not mistaken. I think they showed him a couple of times he got qualified. They sent him to pony finals.
But then he nailed it.
Yeah, and he nailed it. Michaela was amazing. I don't know that he did a ton in the fall until he came down here. And then he really started showing, like this past year that we've had him, he's kind of gone everywhere. So I think he's grown up a lot in the last year. So he's 11, but it's not like he's been showing for 5-6 years. Like some of these ponies that, start showing a lot when they're 5 and 6, they're doing their green year. He wasn't, so I think he's a little bit younger in that state. He needed the miles.
Yeah, to gain that expertise, to have that confidence. Yeah,
for sure.
And what's your routine for getting him ready for a show? Like, you've arrived at the showgrounds. How do you prep him for the class? How do you manage him at the show in ways that take his personality into account?
Usually we try and usually we are, but we'll try and get to the show a couple of days before he shows. The first day, we'll usually lunge him for like 20 minutes. And if there's like a ticketed or USHJA classes, he'll do those for a day or two before he starts showing in his regular divisions.
He always rides in the ring in the morning to see all the jumps in the ring.
Yeah. We don't like overdo it. He pretty much only jumps when he's horse showing. He doesn't really jump much at home, or like if we're at a horse show for the whole week, he won't jump until a little bit later in the week. We just try and keep him really happy. And we try and keep him home as long as possible because he likes his turnout.
Yeah. Well, how do you manage that at the show then? Because obviously there's not turnout, so.
Right. Some shows we get lucky and we can get paddocks. So then he'll go out. Here in Wellington, where we're staying, the farm is attached to the showgrounds. So a lot of times he'll come home from showing and literally go right into the paddock. Like the saddle comes off, the bridle comes off, and he goes right into the paddock for the rest of the day.
What if you're at shows that don't have paddocks, or he doesn't live right next to the showgrounds? How do you manage that?
He usually will then go out a couple times a day. So he might go out in the morning. If he doesn't show till later in the afternoon, he'll go back out around midday.
To ride or hand walk or lunge or okay.
To ride. Sometimes he'll get lunged again like later in the day if he doesn't go till really late. Sometimes at indoors he doesn't go until 4 or 5 at night. It just depends. So we just try and keep him moving and going and not stuck in his stall.
Yeah. Kenzie, what do you think is his favorite part of the routine of getting ready for a class?
I definitely think he likes when he's all braided up and stuff, and he definitely likes like hand walks a lot. He loves his hand walks.
What do you think he likes about them?
Probably that he's just like not stuck in his stall. He loves to graze a lot.
Yeah, I would think he might get bored with his profile. Horses that I say get bored really easily are usually also high independence because they like to be mentally challenged as well. But he does have high extroversion and the low stability, so the curiosity, and then likes variety and higher energy. So I could see how just getting out and seeing the buzz and all the other people walking around and just how that adds some stimulation to his day, so he's not just bored and stuck in a stall.
Yeah, like we took him to Kentucky for a few weeks last year. We usually go a couple weeks before pony finals, stay for pony finals. And there, unfortunately, we don't have turnout, obviously, but they have their cross-country course there. So usually I would take him out for an hour.
Yeah.
He loves the cross-country, just like walking around.
From an energy perspective, does he tend to build up energy if he doesn't get out, or is he more kind of mellow, cool-headed and doesn't really matter if he doesn't do anything for a day or two.
I would say yes, he builds up energy.
Yeah, he definitely builds his energy. But even if we turn him out, he doesn't run. But I think just walking around and like moseying around the paddock is enough to keep him quiet.
Yeah, his stability is not super low. And again, his independence is lower than his stability spectrum. And so those horses that have that relationship are more responsive versus proactive. And so I can see how that would lead to him not necessarily being like hyperactive, but maybe just kind of bored and wants a change of scenery kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that's true. For sure.
Any specific tips for managing him at home?
I mean, home he's pretty easy. Same thing. Like weather's good, he stays outside all night. This way he's not stuck in the stall. He's pretty easy.
He doesn't love when it's cold out.
That's true.
But at least he comes to Florida in the winter, so.
I don't like it when it's cold out either, so I get it.
He definitely likes the warmer weather, for sure. For sure. But at home he just flats. Nice flats, relaxing, nothing crazy at home. So he knows he comes home, so he can relax.
Aside from riding and turnout, are there any other things that you do to sort of accommodate his personality?
Treats. He loves treats.
Yeah, he loves the attention.
I mean, he gets magna waved a lot. Anything to make him feel good and keep his body good.
Does he get tense easily, or?
I don't know that he gets tense. I think when he's horse showing, he jumps really, really well. And so I think he uses himself a lot. You know, he's a little bit hard. So I think like the magna waving and lasering and all of that, I think just keeps him really happy.
You said he really likes treats, Kenzie. What's his favorite treat?
Mrs. Pastures.
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Pastures. Those smell so good. They really do.
When we first got him, he wouldn't eat. You know, like the treats with the frosting on them? Treats like the cute ones where like people.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to give him one of those, and he like ate the treat but spit out the icing. He used to like not eat those treats. Like he only wanted the plain treats.
They didn't like the sugar.
Yeah, he used to be very picky. Now he eats a lot more stuff.
Does he still eat the sugar?
Now he eats the sugar.
When he first came to us, everyone would try and feed him treats, and they're like, "What's wrong with this pony?" I have so many kids, and they like just go up and down the aisle and like feed the horses and the ponies treats, and I'm like, "He doesn't eat anything," and they're like, "No mints. He wouldn't eat mints."
Oh yeah, he hates mints. He won't eat mints.
He still won't eat mints?
No.
Very picky.
Is he picky about everything he eats too, like grain and stuff too, or just the treats?
No, I would say he's a pretty good eater as far as like regular food goes, but definitely treats. He's not.
Now he loves bananas.
With the peel and all?
No, he won't eat the peel.
Oh, okay. I always see the videos of people just feeding an entire banana to their horse. I'm like, okay.
He'll only eat the inside.
Yeah.
We always try new things. I have a lady that works for me in New York, and she's always trying to bring different things and teach him how to eat. We don't have to have like a separate basket of treats just for him.
Just for him, yeah.
He likes vanilla Oreos.
He just doesn't like the super sweet stuff, it sounds. Here we are trying to force feed him sugar, and
He's got to keep his bod.
From a riding perspective, now that you have had him for about a year, or he's been with you for about a year, what have you figured out from a riding and training perspective? What tips work best? Like if someone were to come and ride him who knew nothing about him, what are the tips that you would give them? Maybe we could, Kenzie, since you're the one that rides him, why don't you tell me what tips you would tell this person?
I would say always do simple changes. Besides, when you're showing him, he can get like rushed on them. He's better off just doing simple changes till he gets into the show ring. And always keep a good feel on his mouth.
Like holding his hand kind of thing?
Yeah, not like rough, but like really nice.
How about for you, Heather? What have you figured out works well for him?
I think definitely like a supporting hand. And I think if you can kind of feel when he's going to start to do something. I think instead of getting angry at him, because once that happens, he just goes straight downhill. I think you just have to pat him and reassure him that everything's fine. And then he's just like, okay, it's fine. And then he'll go about whatever we were doing and he's totally fine. But I think if you overreact to the little things, I think that sets him off.
With it, low independence horses are more conflict averse. And because they're so willing and they want to please, it can be a real downer when they feel like they are not pleasing. And then on top of that, because his structure is so high structure horses really like to do things right. And if he feels like he's getting in trouble for doing something wrong, in addition to then being insecure, then he's sort of spiraling because he doesn't know what the right answer is, or there's more kind of risk there that he doesn't know how to mitigate.
Right. Yeah, no, it's always like reassuring him and being nice to him. I think for sure he's the type that you kind of have to hold his hand a lot. He has to really like you and trust you. He's not the type to go out and work for everybody. I think you have to build the relationship first. He lets you know when he doesn't like something or someone.
How does he show that he doesn't like somebody?
I would say he may not perform to the best of his ability.
So it's not necessarily that he is angry or...
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
He's a very sweet horse.
Yeah.
Like, he loves attention. I would say he's become sweeter since we've gotten him because I think he's very much bonded with Kenzie, where like she's constantly giving hugs and kisses and going in his stall, and she's built that relationship with him. So I think he trusts her always, you know, that she's not going to put him in the wrong situation. So I think it's really important to build that bond with him. I think that's what he likes, kind of makes him work a little bit.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Kenzie?
I mean, as you said, when he doesn't like someone, I mean, he kind of like, he just does stuff that he knows he knows how to do, that he just won't do it for them. He like almost plays dumb a little bit.
I mean, he lets you know, like, if he's scared of something, he lets you know. I mean, he definitely like shows his feelings for sure. You know, if he's happy about something, you know he's happy. I think the biggest thing with him is keeping him happy. I think if he's happy and he's enjoying his job, I think he'll give you 110% all the time.
So related to discipline then, I would love to know your thoughts on how you feel his personality has impacted his success as a pony hunter.
I think the fact that he does want to please and that he likes to win, he likes to bond with someone, I think is a really strong trait. I always say I think the best horses and ponies are all a little bit quirky sometimes. They all have something, but I think that's what makes them really special. I think they want to perform and they want to win, and they know when it's the big stage, and I feel like that's him. Some of the ones that come out the same every day and they don't really like test your abilities and make you question sometimes like what you're doing. I think the ones that are like easier, they just kind of stay status quo all the time. You know, but I think the really, really good ones, I think most of the trainers that you talk to will all tell you that you have to develop a certain program around them for them. You know, like you have to get to know them to really make them work and to be the best that they can be.
Kenzie, you've ridden a lot of really amazing ponies. What are your thoughts on their personalities? Do they have similarities? Are they all different? What are your thoughts on what makes them so successful in the pony hunters?
I have to say a lot of them that win a lot all have like at least one problem. Like Lex is perfect, but you know, she had sometimes be a little sassy but all of mine, they have at least like one problem that really gets them, but then they're all perfect.
Yeah, you've just figured out how to work with them. And
yeah, especially the like green ones.
I think that's where XPI can provide a lot of benefit too, is because if we have a standard way of talking about personality, then we can really better understand how to support their quirks and help them be successful and happy. Because I really do feel like the happy horses are the most successful. You know, like if you're not happy or you're not feeling well, like you're just not going to perform your best. So I think XPI can really help with that. And you know, people who are really successful, such as yourselves, intuitively figure these things out. And so it's interesting to see, you know, as we talk about Morley's XPI profile, and we did, you know, Lex last season. So it's interesting to see how you all are already intuitively doing these things and how we can help other people do it as well.
I don't think there's like a cookie cutter way to do it. I think the people that are at the top of their games, I think if you have 20 horses in your barn, I think you have to treat it as 20 different individuals. I think you really have to get to know them and understand them and have a lot of tools in your toolbox to make them work, because they're not all the same, But I think for sure, like the special ones, when you have them, you got to be able to dive deep into them and know what makes them click,
Yeah. When you say have to figure out what makes things click, I feel like if we were to equate that to ECBI, every horse, depending on where the horse falls on each spectrum of behavior and how those spectrums relate to each other, there's certain needs associated with those things, right? Like the low independence needs more hand holding and needs a confident rider because they don't have that self-confidence themselves. And the high extroversion and the low stability, they need more variety and they need time to get out and see things. And with the high structure, they need clarity and they need to go in the ring and see all the jumps ahead of time. So it's not new when they're cantering towards it, so it's understanding what all these different needs are. And I think if I'm understanding correctly, that's what you mean by figuring out what makes things click.
Yep. Yeah, because I have a lot of different ones in my barn, and I don't think I have the same program or in the same like pre-showing prep for any of them. They're all different. They all require something different.
So related to personality, I love asking the nature versus nurture question, all right, the chicken or the egg. And so I want to frame it a little bit differently this time, but it's essentially the nature versus nurture question. I'm curious if you think that a horse's personality can change over time, or do you believe that they're born with the personality that they have forever?
I would say I think it can definitely change for sure, 100%. I think part of it is definitely like you're born with certain qualities for sure, just like humans. But I think the program that they're in, the riders that they have, the way that they're treated, I think can either make them excel or can hinder them 100% for sure.
How about you, Kenzie?
I think it can change, like if they were at one barn and it wasn't going so well, and then they went to a different barn and it started going well. I think it could really change off of like how they think and how they like change what they're doing a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you feel like that their actual personality is changing or just the behavior that we're observing is changing?
It could be both. I mean, you could take one that maybe wasn't excelling in a certain program and maybe it wasn't happy, it wasn't getting its needs met, and maybe it wasn't winning. It doesn't mean that it's not capable of being like a very sweet horse and winning. It just might not have been the right program for that animal.
Mm-hmm.
And you move it to barn B, and maybe it's getting treated differently. Its program is different. Its feed is different. The prep is different. And now all of a sudden it's winning everywhere. And it's the sweetest horse in the barn. And you can go in its stall and it's giving you hugs and kisses and taking treats. And it's walking up to the ring and marching around and getting 90s. Like, I think it definitely is a little bit of both.
Yeah. And how much do you feel like the personality is passed down from parents?
I think definitely some of it is passed down, and I think the rest is some of it, like you're born with, it's not going to change. I mean, I have 2 kids. They were both raised the same exact way, and everyone will tell you that knows my 2 kids, they could not be any more different if you tried, right? But like raised exactly the same. It's just how they were born, right? So I think horses, it's the same way. I think some horses are, they're born and they want to be winners and they have great personalities, and, you can just help them along the way to make them great. And I think some it's a little bit tougher because maybe they don't have that. Like they just don't want to be winners.
Yeah. They want to be the lesson pony.
Yeah, and then that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're not always going to make the lesson pony the star at pony finals.
Right.
They're all different, right? Ones are born to do certain things. So
yeah, that is one of my goals with this podcast. Hopefully over time, once I've done enough interviews with people to see if there are trends in the personalities across the pony hunters versus the high performance hunters versus jumpers and dressage and eventing and reining and cutting and other Western disciplines or other disciplines in general. I mean, I'm going to have to do a lot of interviews to definitively say if there are trends or not, but it is very fascinating. And like you said, like some personalities don't want to be in the show. You know, just like some people don't like public speaking. Like they don't want to be in front of a crowd, you know?
I mean, I think it's very true, you know? I mean, you could take a mare that was champion at pony finals, breed it with the best stallion. It doesn't mean that you're going to get the next winner at pony final. You're rolling the dice.
Yeah. If this conversation has inspired you to learn more about your own horse's individual needs and motivations, you can get an EQBI profile at our website, which is www.equineperformanceidentities.com. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and thought the content was interesting, I would love if you could share it with anyone else who you think would feel the same. I'd also really appreciate if you could take a quick minute to give this podcast a rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes about the top horses in hunters, jumpers, equitation, dressage, eventing, reining, cutting, there's probably more that I'm forgetting, but make sure you click that follow button too. Well, thanks for listening to me, Caitlin Hendry, and I hope you tune in to the next episode of Inside Equine Minds.